discipline is praised everywhere. Wake up at 5 a.m., cold showers, no excuses, no weakness, no emotions, no hesitation, push harder, stay consistent, outwork everyone. And if you fail, you just need more discipline. That's the message. But here's the uncomfortable question most people never stop to ask. What if discipline isn't your real problem? What if it's your shield? What if the thing you're trying to strengthen is actually the thing you're hiding behind? Discipline feels powerful. It creates structure. It creates predictability. It creates control. And when life feels chaotic, control feels safe. When emotions feel overwhelming, structure feels stabilizing. When your inner world feels uncertain, routines give you something solid to stand on. So you build systems, schedules, rules, standards, non-negotiables. And from the outside, it looks impressive. You look focused, driven, committed. People admire that. But strength is not the same as suppression. There's a quiet difference between self-control and self-avoidance. And most people never notice when they cross that line. Discipline can build you, or it can hide you. Some people are not undisciplined. They're exhausted, not because they're lazy, not because they lack ambition, but because they are constantly forcing themselves to perform against internal resistance they never pause to understand. Every morning becomes a negotiation. Just push through. Just ignore it. Just execute. And so you do. You override the doubt. You override the fatigue. You override the confusion. You override the emotion. But overriding is not resolving. When discipline is used as a weapon against yourself, it creates friction. And friction, sustained long enough, becomes burnout. Here's something most productivity culture never talks about. The more disconnected you are from yourself, the more extreme your discipline becomes. Because if you don't trust your internal guidance, you replace it with rigid rules. If you don't understand your emotions, you silence them with performance. If you feel insecure, you compensate with standards so high they leave no room to breathe. You try to outwork uncertainty. You try to outcontrol insecurity. You try to outdiscipline self-doubt. But internal conflict doesn't disappear because you ignore it. It waits, and it collects interest. That's why some of the most disciplined people burn out the hardest. From the outside, they look unstoppable. From the inside, they feel trapped because their structure was built on tension, not clarity. Real discipline feels different. It doesn't feel like war every morning. It doesn't require you to dominate yourself. It doesn't feel like you are dragging your own mind across the finish line. Real discipline is alignment. When you are aligned, effort feels clean, still challenging, still demanding, but not heavy, not forced. There's a calm underneath it, a quiet certainty. You don't need to scream at yourself to move. You don't need to shame yourself to act. You move because the direction makes sense. That's clarity. And clarity is deeper than discipline. But clarity requires something most high performers avoid: stillness. And stillness is uncomfortable because stillness removes distraction. When you stop moving, when you stop optimizing, when you stop improving, you are left alone with yourself. And if your identity has been built around performance, that silence can feel threatening. Who are you without achievement? Who are you without productivity? Who are you without progress metrics? For many people, discipline is not about growth. It's about worth. If I stay disciplined, I am valuable. If I stay productive, I am enough. If I keep improving, I deserve respect. But that equation is fragile, because the moment you rest, the moment you slow down, the moment you fail, your worth feels unstable, so you push harder, not because it's aligned, but because stopping feels unsafe. That's not strength, that's fear wearing armor. And it's subtle, because society rewards it. Nobody criticizes over-discipline. Nobody questions the person who works constantly. Nobody worries about the person who never relaxes. They call them focused, dedicated, driven. But sometimes the drive is escape. Escape from unresolved emotion. Escape from identity confusion. Escape from feeling not enough. And here is where it becomes dangerous. When discipline is built on avoidance, success amplifies the emptiness. Because achievement removes excuses. You hit the goal. You reach the milestone. You build the body. You grow the income. And then you realize you still feel restless. You still feel pressure. You still feel like something is missing. Because the tension was never about output. It was about identity. If deep down you believe you are not enough, no level of discipline will fix that belief. It will only temporarily distract you from it. Real strength is not the ability to override yourself indefinitely. It is the ability to understand yourself honestly. It is the ability to sit with discomfort without immediately trying to dominate it. It is the ability to ask, why am I pushing so hard? Who am I trying to prove this to? What would happen if I slowed down? Those questions require courage, because sometimes the answer is uncomfortable. Sometimes the path you are disciplining yourself into is not even yours. It's inherited from expectations, from comparison, from old insecurities, from a younger version of you who thought success would finally make everything feel safe. Discipline is powerful, but it is not the foundation. Clarity is. And clarity does not come from intensity. It comes from awareness. Awareness of your patterns, awareness of your motives, awareness of your fears. When discipline grows from clarity, it feels sustainable. You can rest without guilt. You can adjust without shame. You can fail without collapsing, because your identity is not tied to performance. You are not disciplining yourself into worth. You are expressing your values through action. That is very different. One feels tight. The other feels stable. One feels urgent. The other feels grounded. So here's the real test. If nobody was watching, if there was no applause, no comparison, no external validation, would you still choose this routine? Would you still chase this goal? Would you still wake up at that hour? Or are you disciplining yourself into a life you don't even want? That question divides people. Some feel clarity immediately. Others feel resistance. And resistance is information. Because sometimes what we call discipline is fear of stillness, fear of confronting what you feel, fear of discovering you might want something different. Discipline builds momentum, but self-understanding builds stability. Momentum can carry you far, but without stability, it eventually collapses. You don't need less discipline. You might need more honesty. Honesty about your limits. Honesty about your motives. Honesty about your emotional state. There is a version of discipline that is calm. That does not shout. That does not shame. That does not threaten. It simply chooses and then repeats that choice quietly, consistently, without internal violence. That version lasts. So before you try to become harder, become clearer. Before you try to control more, understand more. Before you demand more from yourself, ask yourself what you are actually protecting, because sometimes the strongest move is not pushing harder. It is pausing long enough to make sure you are not fighting yourself. Discipline is a tool, not an identity. Use it to build, not to hide. And if this message makes you uncomfortable, good. That means you're thinking. And thinking is the beginning of clarity.